Why do group adventures in fantasy speak so deeply? Hey Book Dragons, I am so glad that you're here with me today. We're going to be talking about the importance of companionship in fantasy, and a lot of classic fantasy novels, as well as some modern fantasy novels, incorporate group activities, group adventures in the fantasy quest. So, a lot of times if you've got one person going on a quest, there are others that join along in that quest to support them and be part of the adventure. We see that, of course, in The Lord of the Rings. That's the classic example with the Fellowship of the Ring that follows Frodo on his journey to Mount Doom to destroy the ring. And there are other examples of this as well, though. It's very common to see this in The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan, which has some similarities, at least at the beginning, to The Lord of the Rings. We also see it in the Shannara books by Terry Brooks. His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman incorporates elements of that as well. The Dresden Files as well by Jim Butcher. Harry Dresden is often seen with various different companions and friends that are helping him in his efforts to maintain peace in the city of Chicago. And then, of course, you've got Fitz in The Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. So there's lots of examples of this that we see throughout fantasy literature, and there's elements of it in science fiction and thrillers and different things like that as well. I'm just focusing on one genre today, and that's my primary genre, which is fantasy, but it does pop up in other genres as well. And I think as human beings, we really resonate with the importance of having somebody come alongside to join us in the hard parts of life or in the not so hard parts of life. Just having a companion on our journey as we go throughout life is really important to us. And I think that is one of the reasons that fantasy and adventuring parties resonate so deeply. There's a quote by John Donne from his Meditation number 17 that goes like this: "No man is an island, entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main." And that particular verse goes on to talk about how human beings are all connected. We're all part of the same human race. We're all part of that one enormous group, and we are interconnected together. So there's a lot more to it than just what I read there, but it really does emphasize the importance of companionship and not going through life alone. And it's interesting to think about the fact that despite countless millennia of evolution, one thing that has not evolved out of the human race is our need for social interaction, our need for companionship. We are social creatures. That has not changed. So having people alongside us is innate. It's something that we need. It's a clearly defined human need. And so I think seeing these elements in fantasy novels play out the way they do really draws us in and makes the experience of reading more real and concrete down deep inside us. So the first thing I want to briefly talk about is the pain of isolation. We see this very clearly in situations where somebody is in prison and they're put in solitary confinement, and we see it in the French concept of an oubliette, where people are just sequestered away with no human interaction and left to eventually descend into madness if they are not released. And an oubliette is a place of forgetting. It's assumed that you will eventually forget that you were part of the world at all. And I think the pain of isolation is seen most clear in the case of Fitz's chivalry farcier from The Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. I take the unpopular opinion that Fitz is a very boring character when he is not around other people, when he is not around other characters like the fool, like his farcier family, like the girl he loves. When he's not around other people, he's just kind of a very one-dimensional, boring character. And I think that was intentional on the part of Robin Hobb because she wanted to illustrate how important it is for Fitz to be around other people and to be protected from himself in some cases, oftentimes, because he's just sometimes a bumbling fool himself, and so he needs companionship. He needs people around him to help him be a better person, a stronger person, and I think he's a much more interesting character when he is with other people. And I would say that's true of real life. I know my life would be really boring if I didn't have other people around me. And so isolation just isn't really good or healthy. And I think fantasy literature really illustrates that very well. Also, you get the benefit of having strength in numbers. And I think we see this really clearly in The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien, because Frodo has a wide range of people to help him. He has Gimli's axe, he has the bow of Legolas, and he has the sword of Aragorn, and so on and so forth. You get the picture. But he's got a lot of different people backing him up as he begins his journey to take the ring to Mordor to have it destroyed. And we see this in other different types of groups and fellowships in fantasy literature, especially the classics, but there are other examples in modern fantasy books as well. And I think that's just really important for several reasons. For safety, to avoid loneliness, to not be constantly stuck with just the dark thoughts that pop up in your mind. You've got people there you can talk to, and you've got people there that can protect you, and vice versa. You're there to protect them and lift them up. There are so many benefits to having those people around you, and I think we see that in real life as well. There are so many times that I have been extremely thankful for having people around me instead of just sitting alone in the dark with my thoughts, you know. Even if I do have my phone to doom scroll on, there's just something about having human connection and being able to access the people in your life. And I think fantasy books really illustrate that well also. And even just one other person can make the difference. If we look at Samwise Gamgee in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, just that one person made all the difference for Sam. He knew that if he could count on no one else, he could always count on Sam Gamgee to be there, to lift him up, to help hold him up, sometimes literally when the journey got too hard on his own. He always knew Sam would be there for him. And sometimes that's all it takes. Sometimes it is just that one solitary person that you always know you can count on when the road gets hard. That really speaks to me in so many fantasy books, not just Lord of the Rings, but there are always companions there to lift you up and to make the journey slightly easier. It's still going to be arduous at times, but not being by yourself, not being alone, can make all the difference in the journey. And I think who we become is partly due to being in relationship with others. I mentioned earlier Fitz from the realm of the elderlings being more interesting because of the people around him, but also he becomes a stronger, more capable person because of the people that are around him and helping to teach him things, teach him new ways to look at the world around him, teaching him new ways to look at life experiences. That can make all the difference. Oftentimes, learning how to navigate the journey of life is largely due to the nurturing presence of people in our lives. And I think that's very well illustrated in Fitz's case. It's also illustrated in the case of Harry Dresden. Harry's character arc over the course of the Dresden Files series has seen monumental changes in Harry. There are still things about Harry that are core to who he is. Those things don't necessarily change, but Harry has grown and matured so much because of the other people in his life and their influence, their nurturing presence. Sometimes it's even the mistakes that he sees them make that he does not want to make. He doesn't want to go down that path. And sometimes that's the kind of reverse nurturing that his enemies provide. And there are so many ways that Harry changes because of the influence of other people around him, and especially those who are closest to him in his circle. And a lot of times in fantasy, we see that if one party member falls, the rest of the party is hampered. There is a hole that is left that speaks to what is missing when one member of the party falls. In Lord of the Rings, even though Boromir somewhat succumbed to the power of the ring, he still ended up saving the rest of the party so that they could escape and go and do the things they needed to do. And he left a visible hole that was deeply felt and spoken about often throughout the series. And so I think the reason fantasy resonates so deeply with us is because it speaks to our overwhelming need for each other. Our overwhelming need to have people in our lives that are there to build us up, to lift us, to talk to us, to talk us through the hard times in life, to be a support and an encouragement, and to protect us. And vice versa, we are there to protect and lift up as well. And I know for me personally, being a very character-driven reader, that is really what speaks to me the most when I read a fantasy book, is I see the relationships between the characters that are being built. I think that is a foundational part of the success of a fantasy story, is when it so closely mirrors the need for companionship and friendship in real life. So that's all I have to say on this topic. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. I'd love to talk with you in the comments below. So please comment below and tell me your thoughts on this topic, some things that really stick out to you about relationships in fantasy stories. And let me know if there are some things that I didn't mention that you think are part of that core experience as well. If you want to watch more of my content, there are some ideas on the end screen here. And until I talk to you next time, I hope you're reading more books. Take care.